was a massive night for the Demons. 83 points was the margin. There were all sorts of numbers there. And the suspicion is that they're off. I mean, we found out in time that the Geelong boys had a bit of a virus that went through the whole joint. They never threw it up as an excuse, but there was always a thought that they wanted to get back to Melbourne to measure themselves and see how far they've come. My question to you two boys, and we had a good look at this, what changes have they put in place between that game and this one that's about to unfold on Thursday night? Yeah,
well, from a personnel point of view, not much has changed, really. And you really got to go right back over the last few years and have a look at Geelong, and it sort of feels like home and away Geelong, we know what they're going to do every year, and they've just kept doing the same thing and achieving the same thing without being able to get over the top. So Chris Scott came out at the start of the year and he said, we've got to change something, which is a brave thing to do because, you know, outside of a Dustin Martin purple patch where he wins in the grand final, and then last year it's Max Gawn kicking 5 in a prelim. You know, they've been really close. So Scotty came out and said, we're going to stick to doing what we're really good at and we're going to try to maximise that stuff as much as possible. Our weaknesses might shine through, but we're going to stick to it and we're going to be really resolute with that. And he's been true to his word.
Well, there are some personnel changes as well. You know, Tyson Stengel's not insignificant. For him to come in and do what he's been doing, Sam De Koning down the other end has been exceptional, and we've spoken about him throughout most of the year. And the other guy is Jeremy Cameron. You know, he's had a pre-season, he's up and about, and he's playing the best football of his career. So there's you know, two new additions and one guy who's just jumping out of the ground, and that's going to make them better.
So Higgins has been a sub. Henderson, Radaglia not there. De Koning, Stengel and Narkle, the names that are in. From Melbourne on the weekend, it was Gawn not there, McDonald not there, Jackson not there, Rivers not there. And the ins were, I can't even read my own writing, Wiedemann, Bedford, Mitch Brown and...
You did well then.
I did well. So significantly from a Melbourne point of view, they're big names. Now, Max Gawn may or may not be back.
The biggest change for Geelong, though, is we've seen this. We've seen home and away Geelong. We've seen home and away Chris Scott. And so there might be a feeling that we've seen this movie before with Geelong where they're at right now. This ain't that, because Geelong have changed, and they've changed fundamentally both sides of the ball. So we've always considered them a really good defensive team, but the way they've insulated themselves defensively is they've just starved the opposition of inside 50s. Now they're happy to absorb inside 50s against, but they are holding up better than they have, much better than they have in previous years. They're the third best team in the competition, contrasted last year with number 10. You mentioned De Koning. I mean, he's a big reason why.
Yeah, well, they're going to be without Tom Stewart in this particular battle as well. But this is going to be home and away Geelong. I mean, as much as they will have a crack at Melbourne, and we don't know if Melbourne are the quality that they were at the end of last year. They were in rare form. You know, we look in retrospect there, but at the moment, you know, Geelong get a chance to test the theories that they've put in place throughout the first 16 rounds against the best side in the comp. But they still got to get it done when the finals come around. The
significance of that, just that particular number there, so defending once they go in. Those two teams in 17 years haven't been ranked in the top 6 of defending footy when it goes inside. And they were sitting at 10th last year, and they were out now. And we can manipulate these numbers all you want, but this is a reality, you know, and that's a really significant change.
So the suggestion being that unless they took that step, they were not going to be able to have the profile that has won. And De Koning, finals and flag.
That's right. So De Koning, really important part of that, and also allows blitz halves to do some other things.
Yeah, it does. So his role, we know how he's the most versatile player in the competition. He's so valuable in every part of the ground. They'd love to have multiple versions of him, but the shift to more midfield time and more ruck time in particular has been a big shift.
Yeah, well, in that one you can see 69% of defence last year, or in their finals last year, but they've had the luxury of being and De Koning's probably given him Chris Scott and Mark Blitzsaves this opportunity. But you can see there 25% in the midfield and 42% as a ruck, and they love him as a ruck because he runs the opposition ruckman ragged. And if you can get involved in the front half of the field and be that outnumber in the front half of the field, you're going to do a lot more damage. What I would say is, of that 25% in the midfield, he'll often start in the wing and then take over in the ruck around the ground. So it's even greater than the 42 that's listed there.
And the defensive stuff is as low as 2% since about round 8. So they really have gone midfield forward.
I think the reason we're all so excited about this is because I mean, Melbourne are sort of status quo to a certain extent, but Geelong have made all of their changes with Melbourne in mind, with beating the best teams in mind. So you said it before, this is a chance to measure all of that up against the best. And Well, I think we do need to acknowledge this is brave from Geelong to undergo so much change. I mean, defensively, we've seen the improvement, plus they're a greater offensive threat.
Yeah.
You know, they're taking the game on more, and they're doing it all from a base of being a really good team. So it was a brave decision to go through this fundamental change.
There's some real irony with that. Yeah, there's the intent of being more aggressive offensively, and yet they've stiffened up defensively.
Amazing.
So I mean, there's the transition game goes so much hand in hand. The other thing we were discussing is, will both teams show all their cards? Absolutely, they will. This is a game that you want to win. You want to mark yourself and stamp your ground against the contenders, and Melbourne will want to do that to Geelong, and Geelong will want to have a real crack at Melbourne. There won't be anything left in the tank.
No, which is why it's so exciting. I mean, to your point as well, Rui, in terms of preparing for the back end of this season, to have the confidence to know that you're going to win enough games to put yourself in a position. They've been able to rest players, and so DeConing didn't play on the weekend. Selwood's missed, strategically.
Danger probably spent longer out than he needed to.
And he's the embodiment of what we're talking about. So he's still, arguably their most important player. He needs to be at his best, I think, if they win the grand final. This was symbolic. So he's been beautifully handled, beautifully rested. Do we play him? Do we not play him? Coming off a 5-day break going, well, they played him, and that's the opening play of the game. And his numbers, from the amount of game time that he played, 76 minutes, were as good as they have been for a long, long time. So he was highest rated game for the year, highest inside 50s, his second most metres gained. All the things that we've loved about Patrick Dangerfield throughout his career, it was back on display.
There's a little bit in that across the competition, full stop. Less touches for more impact.
Yes.
Because the game has become so high disposal and in all honesty, low impact. So the players that can have high impact for low disposals, and Patrick Dangerfield, when his legs are under him, and when he's sharp and using that power and using that speed to burst out of clearance, the way we saw it that first centre bounce, that's the Patrick Dangerfield that's going to help Geelong be better.
So all the boxes ticked for Thursday from a Geelong point of view.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just a no excuse game really, and then you go, okay. So then the other side, who for whatever reason had 3 games that they lost on the trot, led all those by 4 goals or more at various stages, and now they come up against the Melbourne. Gawn there or not, Jackson there or not, McDonald is certainly big out. Oliver and Petrarca and Viney just did it again. Now, their game against Adelaide was a challenge. Adelaide were really good. They've shown that they can beat Melbourne in the past. I reckon the Darren Burgess factor going there, and just knew that club inside out. So they gave a great account of themselves. Got back over. So what do you do with Oliver, who just plays at this level, at this elite level, which we've discussed a lot? Do you allow him to play on his own terms, or do you set someone for him? Because no one tends to. When we say no one, the last time the ball went to him in round 3, I reckon, in 2021, and it was that we walked away going, oh, you can impact him with negative. The next week they've put O'Connor on him, had 34.
Well, that's the thing. Have you got a player that can actually do the job? Because there's no use putting a player on that doesn't get the job, because you're locking one of your attributes up to basically be beaten. Yeah. So if you've got... I think it's worth a crack, though, isn't it? Like, he's been so dominant and so consistent, and he sets them up. Probably the time to do it would have been a couple of weeks ago when Petrarca was just middling, and then Oliver's a target. But when they're both up and about, it's a tough job.
Is he the one you go to? Or do you go to Petrarca?
Well, remember early in this season, it was all like for the Bulldogs, round 1, Petrarca... what he did to you in the grand final, and then you let him do it again in round 1.
Yep.
And then it was all Petrarca. But then when you've got such a damaging midfield, and as you call them, generational, when you've got a couple of guys there that are going to kill you with their touches and that are going to have their hurt factors so high.
Handy to bat deep.
And probably Petrarca's hurt factor, if you on any measure, you'd say his hurt factor is higher than Oliver's, because... the one disposal or 2 disposals that look so impressive are probably Petrarca's. But Oliver just gets it done consistently.
There's just so much to look forward to. The forward half is still not working from a Melbourne point of view.
You've been on forward watch for a long time now for Melbourne. And you were more confident last week?
Well, they went different. They went 2 talls and the smalls got the job done last week.
Did they revert back?
Against Brisbane? No, not really. But, I mean, they still play a game where they're prepared to take ground and kick high into a forward line that just can't take a contested mark. They're 18 in the comp for contested marks. Now, they're on top of the ladder. So you take all this into account. At some stage, I wonder whether this will bite. They've got to tidy this up still, I think, but they're sitting on top of the ladder.
If you're winning, Bucks, and you see that, and you're Simon Goodwin, are you thinking it's irrelevant because we're winning?
No, you're always looking for better. But Melbourne started as the highest scoring team in the comp. Even at the beginning of this year, they're down to 6 now, and that's hard to do. It's actually hard to drop away because you have to drop as much as other teams are going to catch you as well. So, yeah, to be the 6th highest scoring team in the comp is one thing that maybe there's a question mark, and it's efficiency going inside forward 50. Yeah. But their defence is so strong that will hold them up. But if you could just knock that up a couple of notches, then you go back to what we saw late last year.
Can't wait. We just can't wait to watch it.